You injure yourself. What are you gonna do? I've injured myself multiple times throughout my career. As long as I stayed in this negative mindset, viewing it as a negative event, I didn't get anything done. Well, let's reframe this. Let's view this as a positive thing. So how can we do that in our drumming? There are things that you need to work on. We don't because they're not like fires burning, or maybe they're not as interesting to work on, and there's a million reasons. Well, welcome back to the Drum Show podcast. We are talking about the unthinkable. What if this happened to you? What would you do? What are you gonna do? Because let me tell you something. It's gonna happen to you. You're like, whoa, what's gonna happen to me, Steven? If you play any instrument, if you're a drummer, if you're a human alive on this earth, at some point we have very human bodies. Some are more superhuman than others. You are going to injure yourself. Whether that be I cut my finger, or that be I broke my leg, pulled a muscle, etc., and so forth. What do we do whenever we're a drummer and we've injured ourselves and that affects us playing the instrument? And you're like, well, I guess I just wouldn't practice. I guess it's not something you really think about until it happens. And if you don't have a plan for it, when it happens, you become very, very discouraged. That now you can't practice the drums. I'm really frustrated. Can't practice the drum. I'm practicing something on the practice pad. It's not the same. This is me whenever I've injured myself before. I'm like a fussy 4-year-old kid. I'm not throwing fit. Real angry. My hat off. Ground. Stomping, My 6-year-old does all these things. Because she's 6. Like, what else is she going to do? She's trying to learn how to express her emotions, right? Stomping seems like a fit response. The more I see the way 5 and 6-year-olds express their emotions, I'm like, I actually feel like doing that too. So why don't we just stand here and stomp for a while? Because I'm kind of pretty angry about this too, It doesn't get anything accomplished, but you kind of feel better after you stomp for a while. And so we have to kind of plan for these things, because we always view injuries as a negative thing. I've broken my arm. This is a negative thing for my drumming. Whereas I'm here to tell you, maybe a broken arm is one of the most positive things and one of the best things that could have ever happened to your drumming. So you're like, whoa, okay, Steven. Are you advocating we all break our arms? No. I'm just saying, maybe it's not the worst thing that's ever happened to your drumming. Maybe what we need to do is reframe the conversation for ourselves, because we are going to get injured. And when you get injured, if you stay in a negative mind space and a negative mindset as it pertains to your drumming, you are not going to make the progress you could. Okay? An injury is simply an event that happened. It is only good or bad if we put that label of good or bad on it. Let me give you a way. I've talked to so many people in their lives, outside of drumming and inside of drumming, where they got sick, or they pulled their back, or something happened, and all of a sudden, time had to slow down. They couldn't go at the pace they were used to going. And the thing that so many of them say whenever those things happen is, in the end, I realized this was actually a really good thing that happened. Some of the best things that could happen. Why? Why would that be like a good thing? I was home every day, and we worked it out that I would keep the kids, and I wound up actually just being able to spend a ton of time with my kids. We'd never played board games. We'd never kind of watched TV together. We had never gone on walks, and I had the time to do this because I was on sick leave, and I couldn't work really. And now I have this great relationship, and we decided we're going to keep some of those things going. Same could be said for your marriage. My marriage it was really rough, and now we have time. We take time every day to be with each other. We take time to sort through some of these things. I'll give you an instance in our own life. Kelly, that's my wife, her dad was passing a few years ago, and she took time off before he passed to help with his care instead of taking time off after, because it was we knew all this was coming. So she took 3 months, and she helped take care of her dad. And I would say from her conversations, that time was pretty meaningful to her because she was able to spend a lot more time with him. And he was good to spend time. He wanted to spend time because he didn't have much, right? When she went back to work, she went back for 2 days. And she was completely stressed out, freaked out. Like, we didn't realize how much stress we were living with. And so I came home and I said, okay, that's it. Like, if you love this job and you want to stay there, then I'm all for it. But you seem to be okay when you weren't working. Are you wanting to work? She's like, no. If I quit this, I would. And I'd just be home with the kids and be able to take care of the family. I'm like, okay. So I'll work 15 jobs. We're going to make that happen, right? So we made moves to make that happen. You wouldn't think that having to take time off because one of your parents was passing was one of the best things that's happened to you. But honestly, us having that aha moment where we had some space while this tragedy was kind of going on in our personal lives for us to go, okay, well, it's kind of nice having you here and having this. These things that are kind of on the side of this bad thing that's happening. They're kind of good, you know. And so she's been home with the kids, and now she homeschools them. She's amazing. She's learning to bake bread. She does all these things that she never had time for. It's one of the best things that's happened to our family. Okay, so when we get injured, you're like, Steven, get the truck back on the road. No, look, drumming pertains to life. You get injured, it's going to affect your drumming, right? You feel bad about your drumming, it affects your life. So let's not ignore that. You injure yourself. What are you going to do? I'm here to tell you I've injured myself multiple times. That's not, there's only one of me. I've injured myself multiple times throughout my career. Some of them worse than others. One of them that was real bad. Which finger was it on? I think it's kind of hard to see. I think it was this finger. So I sliced it open. No, it was this finger. I sliced it open with a knife. I was working at Copeland's Cheesecake Bistro. Whenever 9/11 happened, they took us to 20% of the alcohol sales. I was working on Bourbon Street. That wasn't enough for the day band. That wasn't enough to live on. At that time, nobody was traveling. So I had to pick up a side job. And I'd worked kitchens before. I was cutting lemon wedges one day to decorate the plates, and lemon crowns, that's what they called them. And it just slipped and sliced right into my finger. And I went to my manager. I was like, hey, I think I got to go to the hospital because this is a pretty bad cut. Got to the hospital, like I could open it up and like I could see tendons and stuff moving. It was not, I knew like this isn't a very good thing. But I could still move it, which I was very happy about. Got in there and the doctor said, hey, you came within like a hair's breadth of actually cutting nerves and tendons in this finger and it not functioning, you not having any feeling in it. So he sewed me back up and I had gigs that night. What am I supposed to do, you know? I needed to practice. As long as I stayed in this negative mindset, viewing it as a negative event, as long as I did that, I didn't get anything done, you know? And I was talking to a student about this the other day. We were in the forums. I have an online drum school, and in the campus of my online drum school, we have community forums where the students hang out and talk drums, and that's part of this community, right? And she was talking about, you know, I forget his ankle. I don't remember the specific thing. Injured. They were injured, maybe an arm, and kind of frustrated that they had injured themselves and now they didn't have, you know. And so I said, well, let's reframe this. Let's view this as a positive thing. So how can we do that in our drumming when you've injured yourself and you want to view it as a positive? Well, there are things that you need to work on outside of the normal things that you work on, but we don't because they're not like fires burning, or maybe they're not as interesting to work on, and there's a million reasons. This podcast is brought to you by the Drum Better Daily program. That's actually my online drum school that I've run now for 12 plus years. Not only have I been playing the drums professionally since the age of 15, I've been teaching since the age of 18. Matter of fact, I talked to one of my first student a few days ago. I actually called him to see if he could sub a gig out for me. Daniel, love you. you, man. And he's still playing. He's still doing it on a pro level. I would love to have you go check it out at stevensdrumshed.com. You can find a link to that in the show notes or video description, whichever platform you're watching it on. But it truly is a community of like-minded drummers where we are striving to just be the best that we can be at the drums. In addition to over 70 pre-recorded drum courses, there's also a tech talk area where we talk about everything technology related as it pertains to the drums, e-kits, recording, doing videos, all of that stuff. There are forums where you can hang out with the other students as well. We do 2 live video student calls every week that you can join if you'd like to. We do guest artist calls monthly, and I'll even make you a personalized lesson plan if that's what you need. Yes, we talk about the nuts and bolts of drumming. Yes, I give you exercises, but we also talk a lot about how to practice more efficiently, how to practice better, and how to get more out of your practice time. I know you're just like me. You're busy, you're being pulled by work, by family, by friends, by other responsibilities. Whenever you practice, you really want to see gains and have it be productive. That is what we focus on in the Drum Better Daily program. I'll have to say personally, it's been really cool because some of these students I've worked with for over 12 years, we started running drum camps last year in 2022, and I got to meet some of them in person for the first time. Those drum camps have been selling out. They've been just blowing my mind with how much fun they are and how great a time it is to bring the community together in person. A community that was started online and has been going online strong now for over 12 years. I'd love to have you be a part of it. Let's give it, for instance, you're right-handed, right-footed, you break your right foot. Okay, you broke your right foot, broke your leg. It's gonna, like, you're in a cast for a while. This is not good. Okay, well, what do we do with that? How do we? Well, I can't play the drums. I call bull. I think you can. Obviously, talk to your doctor, etc., and so forth. Do all those things. One of the first things that I could think about would be, my left foot is not as great as I would like it to be because I'm right-footed. I always focus on that. I've always said I would like my left foot on my hi-hat to be a little bit more comfortable. And so I am going to move my hi-hat, or maybe I just get a remote pedal and I play it with my left foot. I'm going to somehow set up the drum set so that I can play with my left foot on my bass drum. That may just be moving your bass drum and keeping everything else the same. You may decide to completely reverse your drum kit. That may be something that you do, right? So I've decided to completely reverse my drum kit, and I'm going to, play it like that. So you spend 6 weeks with your drum kit completely reversed, and you're playing on your bass drum with your left foot, and you're like, I'm awful with my left foot. So some of you are like, I don't want to do that. I'm never going to play the bass drum with my left foot. Maybe you will. I don't know. But you know what? You play that bass drum with your left foot long enough, your hi-hat gets pretty easy. You're able to do patterns on there you weren't before. You're able to do hi-hat lifts, all those things. This is a positive thing. Maybe you completely reverse your drum setup where left hand is now your lead hand. Like, why would I do that? Because it's your weak side. So you spend this whole time that your right foot is broken or your right leg is broken. You're like, okay, you're sideline. You spend the whole time working on your weak side, doing the same grooves you would do, and you're like, well, I feel like I'm going backwards. No, you're not. If it's really challenging to you to play those things, this is not a backwards move. This is a forwards move. And our practice time is, I don't know, sometimes we think about practice weird. I know I do. It's like, oh, no, that's not, I used to think music was, oh, no, that's not real practice. It's like, yes, it is. Why are you playing the drums? Play music. Why would music not be real practice? Like, you need to have that in your practice time every day. Oh, I can already play these grooves. Why would I go back through these grooves? Because you can't play them with your left hand and your left foot. But I'm never going to have to. Maybe not. I don't know. But it'd be good to know how to. Josh Freese broke his leg on tour. What did he do? He said I think he was out with the perfect circle. You'll look the story up. You'll have to confirm, everything I'm saying. But I believe I remember seeing this in Modern Drummer or something back in the day. He played with his left foot. How many drummers do you know that could do that? Just be like, look at the band and be like, that's fine. I'll just play things with my left foot tonight. What? Well, you're going to do what? Yeah, it'll be fine. I mean, we'll get through it. It's going to be great. You finished the tour, left-footed, right? Give me a couple minutes. Let me work on this. Okay? These are the kind of things that we have to begin to view these things in that way so that we can create a positive out of what seems like a negative. We can, the old saying, right? We can make lemonade out of lemons. So let's say I hurt my, well, yeah, Stephen, but I actually broke my right hand. Okay, cool. I'm right-handed, so obviously I can't play any drum grooves. No, you can. No, I can't, because then I'll have to move my left hand. Ooh, good challenge. So left hand still has to play 2 and 4, but it's also got to play the hi-hat patterns. That's pretty cool. You still got your hi-hat foot, right? So whenever your hand's not on the hi-hat, guess what your hi-hat foot could do? It could play the hi-hat pattern for you. Yeah, but that would be hard. Yeah. I don't know that I'd ever use it. I don't know. Maybe you wouldn't. Maybe you would, right? Who cares? That's not what I'm concerned about. What I'm concerned about is spinning this to be a positive. I want to find the growth we can have during that time. I want to find that growth. That's what I want to do. Okay, some of you are like, yeah, but Stephen, what if? Now, I will preface this with saying, there are times when you are in so much pain that playing the drums is not possible. There are times when you are so sick, fevers, those types of things, where sitting at the drums is not possible. This is the body telling you, rest. Because that's the best thing you can do for your drumming. The quickest way you can get back to drumming is to get rid of the fever. The quickest way to get back to being healthy is to, whatever. Follow the doctor's orders so that you're resting enough. Rest is huge, and we often think that as time taken away from things, but it's not. Take the rest, take the relaxation. When you come back to drumming, you're going to be enthused to do it. What are some things, if you're like, Stephen, I threw out my back, I literally can't get out of the bed. Like, if I get out of the bed and the doctor said it's going to take a couple weeks, okay, cool. So this is a real thing. What can we do with that? What I would begin to do is I'd go, okay, so I can't get out of bed. That's frustrating. Recognize it. Then I'm going to go, what are some other things that I as a musician do that maybe I could do instead of play the drums? Because there's many studies. There's one, the landmark study you'll hear me forever and ever refer to, the role of deliberate practice in the acquisition of expert performance. It's where the 10,000 hour rule came from, all those. I refer back to that. Why? Because what they found was they spent as much time doing music-related activities as they did practicing, sometimes more. And what that allowed them to do is compound the amount of practice that they were able to do, because you can only focus for so long. So if I'm able to practice for an hour and a half, 2 hours a day, maybe only an hour, maybe only 30 minutes, I can spend that much time sometimes reading or watching documentaries, critically listening to music. All these things are things. So if you're like, I'm bedridden, I can't do it. Okay, cool. First thing I would turn to is I would set myself up a plan. I'm resting, yes, but I'm going to get bored. I don't want to just mindlessly watch Breaking Bad or, Orange is the New Black or whatever new show, The Office, or, all those are older shows, I guess. I don't watch a ton of current TV. I watch documentaries. My life is not that interesting. So I don't want to binge watch everything. I want to actually be productive. So I would outline some times during my days. Okay, I would go, the first day would be getting my material together. I want to find 10 music documentaries that I can list and watch. Okay, cool. I give you a million of them. Standing in the Shadows of Motown. There is one on the Wrecking Crew. There's one called Hired Guns. There is one I recently watched on Netflix on the rhythm guitar player for the Grateful Dead. That was really good. There was a Rush one that I just watched recently that was on a streaming service. It was really good. Tons of TED Talks about music that we could watch. Tons of movies. There's an actual movie about the life of Elvis. There's an actual movie about the lead singer for the Beach Boys, Brian. I forget his last name. And then there's a new one coming out about Bob Marley. There's a movie called Whiplash that's great. There's and there's all these documentaries that we can watch. Make a list. If you're going to be in bed for a long time, I would make a list of more than as many days I'm going to be in bed, because during that time of the day, I'd say, okay, for 2 hours every day, 1 to 2 hours, I am going to ingest and watch and study a musical documentary. And that can be about musicians. It can be about an artist, whatever that looks like. The art of making music. There's a podcast. I forget what it's called. Song Exploder, maybe. It's a great one. It's on, find interviews with your favorite, podcast interviews with your favorite musicians. This is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for all these things. There's so many resources out there. Once you have those, okay, part of my day is going to be spent doing that. You're like, Steven, that's not practicing the drums. I don't care. Stay with me. I can point you to studies where they've done that mental practice. They had people actually practice the drums and actually mentally practice the songs, and they were able to play them almost on the same level. So we can go through songs that we want to learn and mentally play them. Be like, okay, so what's the party's playing there, or she's playing there? This is the bridge. This is that. We can work on song form. I can hold a pencil and a piece of paper. Some of my students are doing this right now. I'm gonna work on bigger picture charting. So I'm just gonna make a song map that has, verse on one line, chorus on another line. I'm not going to write out the exact parts. It's measures, and then I'm going to follow through and make sure I did it right. Write all the hits and all those things. So you're working on your charting. Maybe you've always wanted to learn to transcribe music. Okay, well, I would make part of my day about transcribing some easy songs. Maybe you've always wanted to learn to use something like Finale or MuseScore or another musical notation writing. This is a perfect time to sit with your laptop or a iPad or something in bed and actually do those things instead of just mindlessly watching some more TV that's not about music, right? So we can structure our day. For an hour every day, I'm going to work on learning this software. An hour every day, I'm going to work on notating charts. The other thing I would be doing is books. What books can I read? There's a great book on the life of Miles Davis. There's a great book on the life of Sting. Stuart Copeland's got a book. John Bonham's got a book. There's a book about Stuart Copeland. There's a book about John Bonham. I just read a great book on the rock movement that came out of the New York in the early 2000s, the Yeah Yeah Yeahs, the Strokes, Hives, National, Vampire Weekend, and LCD Sound System. There's tons of artists that came out of there. Kings of Leon. I could keep listing them. So we can decide I'm going to read. That's a pretty thick book, so I would read the book. But then there's also there's a documentary movie that they made 2022 or 2023. I'd watch that too. The book's really thick. It's going to take you a while to get through. I would do that. Maybe I would read biographies, autobiographies on other artists that inspire me. Leonardo da Vinci. I read one on him, very very thick, but he was the world's first Renaissance man. Like, it was very interesting, inspiring to me as a musician to read that. Other things I might read are on how I can instill better habits. So do you see what I'm doing? You're like, Steven, that's not practice. It is. Yes, it is. It all is going to make you a better musician. 100%. It's going to make you a better musician. Maybe you've always wanted to learn reggae. This is a great time because you can learn every element of reggae music and reggae drumming except the actual notes you're playing on the drums. Most of my practice these days for songs is done away from the drum set. I listen. And then when I get to the drum set, there's specific things I need to work on and sort out. But they're far fewer than they would have been if I just sat down and started playing. This is a perfect time to study about the culture surrounding reggae music. There's a whole culture, there's a whole movement, there's a whole mindset around that. Rastafarians, Bob Marley, all the and who are the players? Where did it come from? And. Right? This is the perfect time to do that. But if you're busy, really upset that you threw your back out, I don't know what to tell you. It's going to be as negative of an experience as you want it to be. I had to have a small outpatient surgery done a couple years ago. I spent time thinking about how can I recover some of this time. I had movies I wanted to watch. I had things I wanted to do. And honestly, I don't ever take time off. I don't ever have people, I really don't have people serve me very often. Having food brought to me, that was like a new thing, And it was like, well, that was kind of, and instead of being, angry about it, I was like, you know what? I'm going to enjoy having breakfast in bed. I'm going to enjoy this. I remember watching movies with my oldest Jackson. We watched Men in Black. That was one of the ones that we watched. I watched these old Westerns that I'm not really interested in, but I just never had time. Tombstone, I watched that one again. I just wouldn't take time to do that. But I before I had the procedure done, I went and I set up a small TV. I did this, I did that. I had books that I was reading through. I had more books than I could ever get through. Do you see? I made use of the time. So that's what we've got to do, is we have to take, if the injury is not so bad that it consumes everything about you, meaning the pain is so bad, the fever is so bad, those kinds of things. But beyond that, turn it into a positive. This is a perfect opportunity for me to read these 10 biographies I wanted to read. I could go pull books off the shelf that would keep you busy for months. Okay? Right now, like in this building. This is a perfect time for me to learn about tuning a drum. Didn't think about that one, did you? Doesn't take much to lift a drum, put it on the bed, get it, like we can do that. This is the perfect time for me to do that. By the time you get done with that, you should be the best drum tuner in the world. You should know everything about drum tuning. This is the perfect time for me to start critically listening to some music every day. We don't listen to music enough. Let me say that again. We don't listen to music enough. I get kind of mad about it sometimes. You should listen to more music every day. Everybody should listen to more music. It's so important. It helps your mood. It helps, they've even done studies that listening to music that you like helps relieve pain as much as some over-the-counter pain medicines do. More so in some cases. We're wired a little bit differently than they make us think we're wired. Like, music is really powerful. But we can critically listen. We can listen for enjoyment, but we can also critically listen. What is that? It's where you dissect and you listen to the same album over and over, the same songs over and over, and you're trying to ingest what is going on with this music, and how could I use this in my drumming? How could I learn this music? And. Do you see what I'm saying? Turn it into a positive. Yes, you got injured. Give yourself time to be upset about that. But then, buckle up, Buttercup. Let's move on, Sandy. We're moving on from it, right? We can choose to have this be a bad event, or we can choose to come through it, have some memories that we appreciate. Me having that outpatient surgery, one of my favorite memories is watching Men in Black with my son. I remember doing that. One of my favorite memories is having, my meals in bed. I never got to do that. I don't allow myself really to lay around on the weekends. I kind of like being productive. I would just be laying there and be like, well, they actually want me to lay down. Okay, so I'm not going to do anything else. I'm going to lay here like a slug and enjoy every bit of being slothful here, right? There's great memories about that, Injuries that I've had have made me focus on my left hand. Maybe you injured your right hand, and now this is a great time to work on your weak hand. Only your weak hand, So if you're injured, or when you get injured, take the time, be a little upset. That's totally fine. That's human. But then let's very quickly, after that time frame, say, okay, how am I going to make this a positive? How am I going to come out of this a better musician, a better drummer? Because I promise you, if you will fix the mental side of it, there's so much growth that can happen, even with an injury that seems to sideline your drumming.